praises to the Most High. Shalom, Israel. Wednesday, more world history. We've kind of been on a tear, destroying these false beliefs, according to what other nations are celebrating, what other nations are worshiping. So today, we get to deal with one that a lot of our people are stuck on, a lot of our people are into. That is Egyptology. Let's hop in these scripts. Let's go to Isaiah. We'll get some good history tonight. We're going to get some of the what would you call it? The belief system they have, the things that they believe in, the things that they worship. I may have missed like one thing that just clicked in my head, but we'll touch on it as well. So it's all good. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 30. Isaiah chapter 30, verse, where do I want to start? Start at verse 1.
This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 1. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not out of my spirit.
So the Lord is saying, woe unto Israel. It says when they take counsel, it's not counsel of the Lord. It's not counsel out of these laws. It's not counsels out of the book of the word of the Most High, right? It says, and when they take a covering, when they're looking for protection, it's not the protection of the Most High. Read.
That they may add sin to sin.
That they may add sin to sin, right? Because if they're seeking protection from someone else that's not the Most High, they're ultimately placing something else as their protection, their protector, their God, right? Read on.
That walk to go down into Egypt.
Israel has always had this thing since we've had Stockholm syndrome since Egypt. since the Exodus, we've had that. Because even in the wilderness, we wanted to go back. As bad as it was treating us, we wanted to go back. Right? It says, woe unto these people that walked to go down to Egypt. Read.
And have them not asked at my mouth.
Right, read.
To strengthen themselves in the strength of the Pharaoh.
It says they strengthened themselves in the strength of Pharaoh. That's who they're believing in. That's who they're looking toward, right? Read.
And to trust in the shadow of Egypt.
And to trust in the shadow of Egypt. To trust that Egypt, the remnants, because at this time Egypt is, I mean, they've always had their times of power, but they weren't anything near what they once were. And it said, y'all still trusted in Egypt. Y'all trusted in the shadow of Egypt. Y'all trusted in what it used to be. Y'all still holding on to what it once was. And who's doing that today? We had these conversations all the time. You see it on YouTube. You got so many people that are anti-Hebrew slayers and Hebrew killers and all of this stuff. And they go into the history of Kemet, also known as Egypt, right? To prove how, that's the way and that's our ancestors, that's our history, that's this, that's that. And that's them just trusting in the shadow. They trusting in what once was. The Lord literally, and this was so cold, the Lord proved himself in Egypt, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, with those plagues, right? He went through a number of plagues that destroyed a number of things in Egypt, and each one of those things, people worshiped a god to do those things, from the sun to the water to the crops. The Lord said, I could mess all of that up. I could destroy all of that, right? So, let's talk about Egyptology. Let's go to the PowerPoint, Kanash. Egyptology, the religion of ancient Egypt, right? So, what is Egyptology? Egyptology is the study of ancient Egyptian history, literature, religion, architecture, and art from 5th millennium BC, which is around 4000 BC, until the end of its native religious practices in 4th century AD, which is around 300 AD. Who was, oh, it didn't come up. It's all good. So the father of Egyptology, there was a man known as Jean-Francois Champollion. This was one of the individuals that was the father of Egyptology. This individual, so I'll talk about it because I forgot to place it in the PowerPoint. This individual is the one that is responsible for decrypting or decoding the hieroglyphs, right? There was an individual that came before him, and people have a tendency to critique Champollion because he didn't give credit to this particular individual. I can't remember what his name is, but Jean-Francois Champollion is the one that, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be able to read anything on those Egyptian hieroglyphs, anything on those walls. Now, what is important about this? Well, a lot of people like to talk about, you know, the Bible being the white man's book and the white man's religion and you know, man wrote this, all of that good stuff, right? Not understanding that Egypt, everything that you know about Egypt or think you know about Egypt, started with a white man. Any story, anything you can read about Egypt, anything off the hieroglyphs, if anyone has translated it to say, you know, this is what this is saying, they learned that from a white man. So your religion of Egyptology was created by a white man. You have something up?
Nah, I'm baffled.
So just to start it off, around 18, let me get the date for you. Give me a second.
The crazy thing is everybody I know that's Egyptologists or ever seen, they've always been extra pro-black with all the unks and all the nonsense on. And just to learn that it's created by a white man, who are you to say that when the Bible's written by a white man, but you following the white man as well?
Exactly, and that's the crazy part. Here's the thing. This is what people don't understand. The Bible wasn't written by anyone white. The Bible was translated by individuals. Some were white. Some argue that, you know, we know family members of King James were black. Some argue that King James was black. Was he? I wasn't there. I can't tell you definitively, but I can tell you that we can go down his lineage, and they have, what's the word? They have the historical documents that speak on his family. But for some odd reason, that's something that they want to hold to, right? So, Egyptology started off with Jean-Francois Champollion. There is another individual. Let me see if I can pull his name because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Let me do it like this because I think this is how I found it last time. That's the other person. Flinders Petrie. Let me pull up his information. I have it in my old portfolio, but we'll just pull it from here. Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie, commonly known as simply Flinders Petrie. He was a British Egyptologist and a pioneer of systematic methodology of archaeology and the preservation of artifacts. He held the first chair of Egyptology in the UK and excavated many of the most important archaeological sites in Egypt in conjunction with his wife, Hilde Erlin. Some consider his most famous discovery to be that of the Merneptah stele, an opinion with which Petrie himself concurred. Right now, two things. People talk about how Bible is fake and all of that good stuff, right? This thing known as the Merneptah stele or Merneptah stela. The Merneptah stela is a document. Is a piece of archaeology that talks about one of the pharaohs rather, of Egypt conquering the nation of Israel. What I'll do is I'll pull it up for you really quickly. We'll do this here. What is the Merneptah stele? The Merneptah stele, also known as Israel stele, or the victory stele of Merneptah, is an inscription by Merneptah, a pharaoh in ancient Egypt who reigned from 1213 BC to 1203 BC. It was discovered by Flinders Petrie at Thebes in 1896. It is housed in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Now, people that talk about ancient Israel was never a thing. Israelites are fake. This is something new. 1200 BC. This stele, let me see if I can get actually what the inscription had stated. It's crazy that this literally just came to me. It's okay. I'll spell it out for you guys. So you guys can go research it, and you'll find that in addition to it being something that references the conquering of Israel, it talks about how the God that we served or worshiped was no match for their particular God, which shows that the esteem in which we held our God and the way in which we conducted ourselves and moved, it wasn't just something that was embellished and fictionalized and all of that in the Bible. This was something that was always done, right? So the Merneptah stele, MERNEPTAH, stele, STELE. You guys can research that. Now, go back to the PowerPoint. We're going to talk about the religion of Egyptology. The ancient Egyptians worshipped over 1,400 different gods and goddesses. Now, some say that it was more than 2,000 in their shrines, temples, and homes. These deities were the center of a religion lasting over 3,000 years. Each deity was responsible for a certain part of daily life or the world around the Egyptians. For example, the ibis-headed Thoth was the god of writing and knowledge, while the falcon-headed Horus was the god of kingship. So we see that there was literally a god for everything in Egypt. There's a god of water. There's a god that is the god of the firmaments of the sky. There's the god of, and we're going to touch on this one, a god of the land, harvest, crops. There's the god of the sun. There's a god of the moon. So they're what's called polytheistic, right? Now, here's some of the main deities that they had. You had Horus, you had Osiris, you had Isis, you had Set, you had Anubis, you had Ma'at. These are the main deities. They have smaller ones, they have other ones, but these are the main ones. Let's stay in the book of Isaiah. No, let's go to Exodus first. Exodus, the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20. Exodus 20 and verse, I think I want to start at the top. Maybe I'll start at verse 2. I'll figure it out right now. Exodus 20, verse, let's read verse 2. Why not?
I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt.
Now, I'm your God. I'm the one that brought you out of Egypt, out of that bondage, right? Read.
Out of the house of bondage.
Verse 3.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Now, first things first, there should be no other God before, in front of, on top of, above of, that has preeminence of the Most High God, Yahweh. There should be no gods before, above, that holds more weight, that you believe more than the Most High God himself, right? Verse 4.
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image.
You should not make any graven image, no idols. Read.
Or any likeness of anything that is in heaven heaven above.
So you shouldn't be making anything that looks like a bird, anything that looks like a seagull, a star, maybe a sun. Like, there should be no types of images that are created to say this is God. Well, Egyptology said, we got a bunch of those, and they all gonna be called gods, right? So let's take it back to the PowerPoint. Let's talk about the creation story of Egyptology. This is their creation story. Long ago, they believed there had been nothing but the dark, swirling waters of chaos stretching into eternity. Pretty similar to the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it was dark and void. Out of this chaos, new rose the primordial hill, known as the Ben, upon which stood the great god Atum. Some versions say that the god was Ptah, but many others said that it was Ra, who eventually was known as Atum Ra. In the presence of Heka, Atum Ra looked upon the nothingness and recognized his aloneness. And so he mated with his own shadow to give birth to two children, Shu, which is the god of the air, whom Atum Ra spat out, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, whom Atum Ra vomited out. Shu gave to the early world the principles of life, while Tefnut contributed the principles of order. So, we'll start there. The creation story is that their god, Atum Ra, their main god, had sex with his shadow and then birthed two kids. One was the god of air, the other was the goddess of moisture. Let's continue on. It's okay. Let's go ahead and continue. In time, Atum Ra became concerned because his children were gone so long. And so he removed his eye and sent it in search of them. While his eye was gone, Atum Ra sat alone on the hill in the midst of chaos and contemplated eternity. Shu and Tefnut returned with the eye of Atum Ra, later associated with the Ujet eye, the eye of Ra, or the all-seeing eye. And their father, grateful for their safe return, shed tears of joy. These tears dropping onto the dark, fertile earth of Ben, gave birth to men and women. Now, let me see what's going on here. Oh, Oh, no. No, we not. Nope, we not dealing with
Not
that.
at all.
Now, oh my goodness. So, oh, that's funny. So it says that eye that most people see, that people be having tatted, the eye of Ra, came about from the superstition or the belief, when Ra actually took his eye out and went and searched for his family. This is also known as the all-seeing eye. And then, because he was happy, he cried. And because he cried, the tears that hit the soil birthed men and women. Now, there's a little truth there because the Lord did make man from the dust of the ground. It didn't say that the Most High God cried, though. This is the belief of those that study and follow under Egyptology, right? So, the way that the earth was created, the way that God's sons, spiritual sons and daughters, were created, the first two other gods were created was Ra had sex with himself, had sex with his shadow. These two gods kind of just floated around the earth. Ra couldn't find them. He finally found them. They came back. He cried. His tears created men and women. That's where we are thus far. These humans had nowhere to live. These humans had nowhere to live, however, and so Shu and Tefnut mated and gave birth to Geb, the earth. Now, maybe I'm overthinking it, but when he cried and his tears landed on soil, where was the soil if the soil wasn't on earth? Because earth is just now being created because humans didn't have anywhere to live. I don't know, maybe I'm tripping. So these humans had nowhere to live, however. So remember, he cried in the soil, made man, they have nowhere to live. So Shu and Tefnut, who are brother and sister, by the way, mated and gave birth to Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky. So the earth wasn't here yet, so I don't know where the soil came from. So these two gods had sex with each other and created the earth and the sky. Geb and Nut, though brother and sister, fell deeply in love and were inseparable. Atum Ra found their behavior unacceptable and pushed Nut away from Geb, high up into the heavens. The two lovers were forever able to see each other, but were no longer able to touch. Nut was already pregnant by Geb, however, and eventually gave birth to Osiris, Isis, Set, Nephthys, and Horus. The five Egyptian gods most often recognized as the earliest, although Hathor is now considered to be older than Isis. These gods then gave birth to all the other gods in one form or another. This, again, and I keep all my sites at the bottom. So this is from worldhistory.org, Egyptian religion. This is why the Lord said this. Go to Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 18. And let me see. Where's that scripture? Let me pull it up really quickly. It's in Leviticus. Oh, sorry. It's at the beginning. I apologize. Leviticus chapter 18 and start at verse 2.
It's the book of Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel.
So we talk about Israel, read.
And say to them, I am the Lord your God.
Right, read.
After the doings
After the doings, read.
of the land of Egypt.
It says, after the things that you saw in Egypt, after the things that you learned in Egypt, after the customs that you saw in Egypt, read.
Wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do.
It says, after the doings of the land of Egypt, where you was at, where you dwelt, it said, you shall not do. You shall not do the things that you saw in Egypt. Now, here's the crazy part, right? When you continue to read in this chapter, he said it over and over. Verse 2 said, Verse 3 said, don't do after the doings of Egypt. Verse 4 says, ye shall do my judgments and keep mine ordinances. Verse 5 says, ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgment. Verse 6, he now gets into what are the things that you shall not do. And when you read this chapter, this is the chapter about fornication, specifically incest. Verse 7, no sex with your parents. Verse 8, no sex with your stepmom. Verse 9, no sex with your brother or your sister. It continues on, right? Then it goes into adultery, orgies, no sex with your aunts and your uncles, a couple other things, right? The Lord said this because this is something that was practiced in Egypt. As a matter of fact, I didn't put it in there for the simple fact that I wanted to stay closely to just the religion. But in Egypt, a lot of the pharaohs, a lot of the ruling class were married to their brothers and their sisters. Incest was a thing that they practiced, not just there, they did it in Britain too. Edomites did the same thing because they wanted to be, I guess, like the Egyptians, I don't know. But this was something that this was a part of their religion. Their gods, first of all, their first god had sex with a shadow. The other gods following had sex with their brothers and their sisters. The Lord said, no. After the things that you see them doing, absolutely not. Go to Exodus. And this is why we always talk to people about this type of stuff. Go to Exodus 11 and 7. Exodus chapter 11 and verse 7. Go ahead.
It's the book of Exodus, chapter 11, and verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue.
He said, and when he references a dog, he's talking about these other nations. He said, none of these dogs going to speak against Israel, right? Y'all better not speak against Israel. Better not speak against my chosen nation, right? Read.
Against man or beast.
Against nothing that we own either. Read.
That ye may know how that the Lord doeth. Put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel.
He said that you gonna know, you gonna see that I made a difference between Israel and the Egyptian. Leviticus 18 said this, the stuff you seen in Egypt, we don't do that. What's that meme on Facebook? Oh no, I'm sorry. It was actually said, but it wasn't in this realm. In Black Panther, we do not do that here. We don't do that here. Most I was telling them, these things we don't, what they doing? Nah. Nah. Don't, absolutely not. But let's get back to more of their story. So, this was the creation. And this is how, the earth was created. These guys then gave birth to all the other gods in one form or the other. Okay. Now, here we get into more of their, again, we're just getting into the belief system of the Egyptologists. Now, some say, no, this stuff, they were anthropomorphized. It wasn't literal gods. Well, look, the ancient the ancient Egyptians looked at them as literal gods. If you decided you want to, well, they just gave personification to the different principles and the different aspects and elements of the world. Okay, that's what you think. But history says otherwise. That's why these things were created. This is why these people believed it. They worshipped these gods, at least the big ones, Ra as one of them, right? So, Isis, which is a goddess, was impregnated by Osiris, who was her brother and also a god. From Geb, the sky god, and Nut, the earth goddess, came for children: Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Again, brothers and sisters. Osiris was the oldest and so became king of Egypt. And he married his sister Isis. Again, this is something that was common in Egypt. Osiris was a good king and commanded the respect of all who lived on the earth and the gods who dwelled in the netherworld. However, Set was always jealous of Osiris because he did not command the respect of those on earth or those in the netherworld. One day, Set transformed himself into a vicious monster and attacked Osiris, killing him. Set then cut Osiris into pieces and distributed them throughout the lengths and breadth of Egypt. With Osiris dead, Set became king of Egypt, with his sister Nephthys as his wife. Now, this is where it's going to get a little weird. Nephthys, however, felt sorry for her sister Isis, who wept endlessly over her lost husband. Isis, who had great magical powers, decided to find her husband and bring him back to life long enough so that they could have a child. Together with Nephthys, Isis roamed the country, collecting the pieces of her husband's body, and reassembling them. Once she completed this task, she breathed the breath of life into his body and resurrected him. They were together again, and Isis became pregnant soon after. Osiris was able to descend into the underworld, where he became the lord of that domain. Now, Osiris was killed. Isis found him, brought him back to life, just long enough for him to impregnate her. Some say that she found all his body parts. Others say that she only found his phallus. And she stuck the dead god's penis in her and got pregnant. Depends on which story you've heard. But we talking about, raising up the dead. You talking about resurrecting the dead, sleeping with the dead, post-mortem, having a baby from your brother who was dead. It's a lot to take in. But these are the things that these individuals believe. Now, there's a few things, and this is why the Lord said what he said in Leviticus. There's a few things in Egypt that were not okay. Homosexuality is one thing that they were big on. Incest was another thing that they were big on. Now, let's get into more of the incestuous practices in this religion. Give me a second. Hey, Nas, check the comments on both the feeds. Oh, okay. Never mind, don't worry about it. So we're going to talk about Horus and Set. A further famous story. Let me pull it up here so I can see it a little clearer. 1 second. Here it is. All right, Horus and Set. A further famous story about same-sex intercourse can be found in the Kahun papyri, dating back to the Middle Kingdom. It contains the nearly completely preserved story of the Osiris myth and the legendary fight for the throne of Egypt between Horus and Seth. The chapter in question reports that Seth was unutterably jealous about his young nephew Horus. Again, this is his nephew. Because Horus was very young and comparatively unpopular because of his choleric and vindictive behavior. Ooh, I'm sorry. I missed the whole line. Let me see if I can see it up here. No, I'm going to just pull it up right here. Let me blow this up. There we go. Blow up the, whatchamacallit. All right, here we go. A further famous story about same-sex intercourse can be found in the Kahun papyri, dating back to the Middle Kingdom. It contains the nearly completely preserved story of the Osiris myth and the legendary fight for the throne of Egypt between Horus and Seth. The chapter in question reports that Seth was unutterably jealous about his young nephew Horus because Horus was very young and popular. He was quite pampered by the other gods. Seth instead had very few companions, and he was comparatively unpopular because of his choleric and vindictive behavior. As a result, Seth tried to either chase away or even kill Horus, no matter what the cost. When Seth constantly fails, he plans to humiliate his rival so badly that Horus will be banned from Egypt forever. This is where it gets a little twisted. Seth invites Horus to a party and convinces the teenage Horus to drink more than Horus could normally cope with. Now, I mean, again, these are gods. This is where people start to take gods for a joke. This is where, we get into a situation where people are like, oh, well, guess what? Hell, hey, it is what it is. Or people are making memes or little videos about, the devil asked me how you end up down here and laughing at me, and, or I'm going to be the devil's right hand man. Like, this is where we get into that, because when you read some of these stories, it's like, this can't be, like, this is crazy. Not understanding that this is not how it is. This is all Greek and Egyptian mythology. These demigods and these gods that don't really have any power, these gods that are warring with one another, these gods that human can sometimes outsmart. Like, all of this stuff is mythology. This is not according to the scriptures. And that's why it's so crazy, because it desensitizes the people to the Most High God. This is why people can laugh at shows that show devils and say, like, shows like Lucifer that kind of, oh, evil looks fun. Lucifer looks fun. It's not that bad. Or people are like, well, oh, well, guess we're going to hell. It is what it is. Like, people really don't fear the Most High God because of stuff like this. But this is where it gets twisted. Then he could normally cope with. First of all, I don't know how gods are getting drunk, but okay. When Horus is drunk, Seth seduces him to sleep overnight in one bed together. When lying together in one bed, Seth grabs Horus and rapes him. But Horus has tricked Seth. His drunkenness was staged. He catches... Wait, what? Oh, my goodness. He catches Seth's semen with his hands and hides it. The next morning, Horus runs to his mother Isis to tell her what happened. Isis is at first speechless with rage and disbelief. Then she tells Horus to masturbate and use his semen to lubricate Seth's favorite food, Egyptian lettuce. Oblivious, Seth eats the manipulated lettuce. Then he goes to the divine court to inform on Horus. At first, the divine judges swear at Horus, but when Thoth, the scribe of the court, calls for Seth's semen to emerge from the body of Horus, instead, the semen of Horus emerges from the body of Seth. Seth blushes in embarrassment and shock, then flees. Horus is acquitted. Now, I don't even, I'm trying to figure out where to start as far as what I want to say, right? So Seth went and tried to tell to the divine judges or whatever, hey, Horus got semen in him. And, it's my semen, by the way. Like, the judges ain't asked, why you do that? That's your nephew. They didn't, it wasn't, why you rape him? He wasn't going to get in any trouble, but Horus would have been in trouble. But then they find out, well, no, that's not what really happened. Look, my semen is really in it. What the hell type of back and forth? What type of
conversation is that?
Jerry Springer shit is this? What's going on?
Wow.
I don't know. This is yeah. Now, let's continue on. For this post, so this is a separate site, University of Michigan. Talks about something, the story of Horus and Set again. For this post, I will be discussing the royal intrigue between two gods, Horus and Set. As you may or may not know, Horus is one of the most important gods out of the entire Egyptian pantheon. Known as the god of the sky and war and hunting, Horus is often depicted with having a human body with a falcon head. According to legend, when the goddess Isis was pregnant with Horus, she had to hide from her brother Set because he was hungry for the throne. Even killing her husband Osiris to usurp it. Once Horus came of age, Isis admonished him to protect the people of Egypt from Set's avarice. And Set was pretty much his evil ways. Where are we at? In fact, the eye of Horus is a symbol that represents divine protection in the ancient Egyptian religion. Now, eye of Horus, eye of Ra, it's the same symbol. Nonetheless, Set, on the other hand, was the god of the desert, disorder, and violence. He's often depicted with a long snout, as you can see from the image to the right. This is an image on the site. According to the papyrus Chester Beatty I, the conflict between Horus and Set happened to be a series of bouts, such as when they transformed into hippopotamuses and submerged themselves into the water to see who could last the longest, to Set removing his eyeballs as he slept. Don't worry, Horus was able to regain his eyes with the help of the mistress Hathor, but the story takes an erotic turn soon after. Now, afterward, at evening time, bed was prepared for them, and they both lay down. But during the night, Set caused his phallus to become stiff and inserted it between Horus's thighs. Then Horus placed his hands between his thighs and received Set's semen. Horus went to tell his mother Isis, "Help me, Isis, my mother. Come and see what Set has done to me." And he opened his hand and let her see Set's semen. She let out a loud shriek, seized the copper knife, cut off his hands that were equivalent. Then she fetched some fragrant ointment and applied it to Horus's phallus. Then she... this is crazy. Then she fetched some fragrant ointment and applied it to Horus's phallus. She caused it to become stiff and inserted it into a pot, and he caused his semen to flow down into it. So Isis jacked off her son. That's what just happened with some ointment, with some oils. This is the history of the gods of Egyptology. This is their belief. This is crazy. She caused it to become stiff and inserted it into a pot, and he caused his semen to flow down into it. Isis, at morning time, went carrying the semen of Horus into the garden of Set and said to Set's gardener, "What sort of vegetable here is it that Set eats here in your company?" So the gardener told her, he doesn't eat any vegetable here in my company except lettuce. And Isis added the semen of Horus onto it. Set returned according to his daily habit and ate the lettuce, which he regularly ate. Thereupon, he became pregnant with the semen of Horus. You want to know why people believe men can get pregnant? You want to know why there's so much confusion in this world? You want to know why we call this place modern-day Sodom and Egypt? This is why. All the debauchery in the world is in Egypt's religion, clearly. It's crazy. This is crazy. This is amazing. Again, we're just going into the history of the religion of Egyptology. So we know how far back it goes. We know who they call the father of Egyptology. We know the individuals of Flinders Petrie, Jean-Francois Champollion. These were the people who one was the person who made it possible to even decrypt hieroglyphs. The other one was the one that started making the most, I guess, iconic, famous archaeological digs in Egypt, him and his wife. And this is how we're getting all of these understandings of these stories. This is Egyptian history. So if you want to claim to be Egyptian, you got to take the good with the bad. Us as Israelites, we take the good with the bad in the Bible. But one thing we know is the stuff that was bad, we know that God said over and over, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. And we, as a people, decided we're going to follow the ways of Egypt. They did it. Their gods did it.
Do people in Egypt even still follow this?
They said that it wasn't as strongly followed around 300 AD. But you have a lot of people in America that are Kemet this, Egypt that. A lot of them still believe in this in ancient Kemet, which, whatever, that's fine. But don't sit up. If you're going to say you're Egyptian, take all of it. Because y'all talk so bad, people talk so bad about the Bible and the Israelites. That's cool. But when we start bringing it, don't sit up here and try to dance around us. Take your good with your bad if you're going to say you Egyptian. That's why God said don't follow the ways of the Egyptians, because look at what they do. Let's go to the next one. We're going to talk about another one of the gods. Just showing you the plethora of the deities that they have. Anubis. Anubis was the Egyptian deity of cemeteries and embalming, as well as the protector of graves. As with any other culture or religion around the world, the Egyptians believed in paying respect to their dead. Therefore, they conducted elaborate ceremonies and mummification processes to help the deceased pass smoothly into the afterlife. Anubis was the deity who played an important role in this journey. Depicted with the black head of a jackal, Anubis helped mummify Egyptians when they died. Black represented the fertile soil of the Nile that was needed to grow yearly crops. So the Egyptians believed that the color black symbolized good fortune and rebirth. Oh, no, there we go. As recorded in the Book of the Dead, or better known as the Book of Going Forth by Day, you can literally go buy this off Amazon, Anubis's other job, so this is what they believe, because this was written on the hieroglyphs, Anubis's other job was to stand in the hall of the two truths and weigh the hearts of the people seeking judgment. The human heart was balanced on the scale against Ma'at's feather of truth. If the heart weighed more than the feather, the person's identity would essentially cease to exist. The hybrid deity Amit would eat the heart and the soul would be destroyed. But if the heart weighed the same as the feather, the deceased would pass through the underworld, Duat, and into the afterlife. Since the Egyptians believed in the concept of Ma'at, which meant order, peace, and balance, death was regarded as importantly as life. Therefore, Anubis was a major part of the transition from life to death and back to life again. So, Anubis was the dog god or the jackal god that walked you down to Ma'at. Ma'at was the god of order. She would weigh your heart on the, I don't know exactly how they conceptualize this, but she would weigh your heart on a scale, on a balance, put her feather on it. If your heart was heavier than that feather, you're done. The dog will eat your heart, or the what is it called? Amit, the hybrid deity, will eat your heart, and then your soul will just blow into oblivion, never to be seen or heard from or anything again. But if your heart weighed as much as the feather, you'd go into the afterlife. What is the afterlife? I'm not sure what they consider the afterlife, but in your next life, you would make it there. Now, one more god, because they just mentioned her, Ma'at. Ma'at was the goddess of truth, justice, balance, and most importantly, order. In paintings, she was depicted as a woman who was either sitting or standing with an ostrich feather on her head, and in some cases, she was depicted with wings. According to the creation myths, Ma'at was created when Ra arose from the waters of Nun, or chaos. Ma'at was often considered to be the daughter of Ra and was married to Thoth, god of wisdom. However, Ma'at was more than just a goddess to the ancient Egyptians. She represented the crucial concept of how the universe was maintained. The ancient Egyptians believed the universe had an order to it, and it was Ma'at who kept everything in balance. This helped the ancient Egyptians develop a strong sense of morality and justice. Ma'at was extremely important in achieving the afterlife. According to the ancient Egyptian mythology, after the death of the body, everyone had to pass through the hall of judgment, where a person's heart was weighed on the scale against Ma'at's feather of truth. If the deceased person's heart balanced with Ma'at's feather, they could continue their journey to the afterlife. If not, their journey ended. This influenced the daily actions of the ancient Egyptians. So, the Most High had already, laid all of this out. But these individuals decided, nah, we're just going to go with all of our gods, and this is how we're going to believe it. This is how we're going to interpret it. Okay. Now, I want to get one more thing, which is not exactly, I guess, the history, but it pertains to Egyptology, and it's one thing that you hear a lot, and it's very annoying. The 42 divine principles of Ma'at, also known as the negative 42 confessions of Ma'at, the 42 affirmations of Ma'at. And the argument is the Israelites were evil, they didn't know good from bad, and they learned to do right from the Egyptians, and they stole a few principles out of the 42 confessions of Ma'at and placed it in their 10 commandments. And they said, thou shalt not, or thou shalt do, because they were, they were rebellious by nature, and they didn't have any morals, and they didn't have any scruples. And that's why in the 42 divine principles of Ma'at, it says, I have not, because they understood they were not supposed to do this. This is the conversation that's had with this topic, right? So, was the 10 commandments plagiarized from the divine principles, the 42 confessions of Ma'at? Let's read them both. We're going to go through the principles of Ma'at first. I have not committed sin. I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain men or women. I have not stolen food. I have not swindled offerings. I have not stolen from God or the goddess. I have not been exclusively angry. I have not cursed the god or goddesses or god or goddess. I have not behaved with violence. I have not caused disruption to peace. I have not acted hastily without thought. I have not exaggerated my words when speaking. I have not stolen what belongs to God or the goddess. I have not overstepped my boundaries of concern. I have not cursed anyone in thought, word, or deed. I have not stolen from or disrespected the deceased. I have not destroyed property belonging to gods or goddesses. I have not taken food from a child. I have not been angry without reason. I have not seduced anyone's wife. I have not closed my ears to truth. I have not terrorized anyone. I have not disobeyed the law. I have not told lies. I have not carried away food. I have not cursed. I have not polluted myself. I have not committed adultery. I have not made anyone cry. I have not felt sorrow without reason. I have not assaulted anyone. I have not worked evil. I have not used evil thoughts, words, or deeds. I have not polluted the water. I have not spoken angrily or arrogantly. I have not falsely accused anyone. I have not placed myself on a pedestal. I have not acted with insolence. I have not been an eavesdropper. I have not deceitful, and I have not stolen anyone's land. Which one of those are in the Ten Commandments? One, maybe two. Now, mind you, a lot of these are universal laws of morality. But the Bible stole it from Egypt. Let's go through the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's not in there. Thou shalt not make any graven images. Not in there. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Not in there, unless you're arguing, I have not cursed the gods or goddess, but that's the only way you'd be able to stretch that one. So let's say, to play devil's advocate, okay, that's one. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's not in there. Honor thy father and thy mother. That's not in there. Thou shalt not kill. That's in there. Thou shalt not commit adultery. That's in there. Thou shalt not steal. Of course, that's in there. Thou shalt not bear false witness. That's in there. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Coveting's not in there. So you have you have 5, arguably 4, that are principal scruples in the world that you would probably find in any culture. But the 10 Commandments were plagiarized from the 42 Confessions of Ma'at, the 42 Divine Laws, the negative 42 Confessions, so on and so forth, right? You can bring it back to us, Kanash. So, those are the gods, the goddesses, the creation stories, I guess some of the war stories. They're what we would call our biblical stories. Those were a number of their biblical stories in the history of Egyptology. So we learned who the father of Egyptology was, Jean-Francois Champollion. He's the one that played a huge role in decrypting the hieroglyphs. Flinders Petrie did a number of archaeological digs. A majority of the stuff that you find in these museums were more than likely from him. We saw the actual religion of these people, what it is that they followed. Now, they had, to some degree, some level of morals and scruples, but they were heavily incestuous. They were heavily into homosexuality. And they had a lot of gods and goddesses that were into a lot of debauchery. And when you see, because then, I mean, we can get into like the Ankh and all of that stuff, or it represents fertility and all this other good stuff. Okay. I think we have enough to give you a starting point. If you decide you want to go down this rabbit hole, I think you have enough for a starting point to deal with Egyptology. The Bible's the white man's book. Well, the hieroglyphs are too. It's translated by a white man too. Your Bible, the commandments of the Bible was plagiarized from, the Confessions of Ma'at. No, it wasn't. You don't see any of that. You have a few that maybe you can argue, but we also have a couple hundred extra laws on how we deal with one another. Your Bible is make-believe. All your stories is make-believe. Not only that, your stories are make-believe, incestuous, and it talks about gods being raped, gods having sex. God, like, when you talk about a god, when we talk about God, like the thing that is above humans, they don't do human things. Like a human has to have sex to procreate. We have to have semen and give it to a woman, or in some cases you got test tube babies, stick it in an incubator. But that's a human process. Gods don't do that. Gods are what you call a spirit. They don't have these fleshly tendencies. They don't have these fleshly desires. According to the Most High. I don't know what y'all believe, but according to the Most High. So that's why the Lord told us, don't do after the ways of Egypt. Because the religion of Egyptology is very perverse, is very adverse to the Most High God, very adverse to the things that he wanted us to do, and very adverse to what a holy people, a holy and wise nation would do. So, I think it was a semi-short lesson, all praise to the Most High, about an hour. So, I pray that there was some edification here. All the information that you were given, if you would like to go down that rabbit hole, do it. Go and do more research. Go and look more into the religion. Go look more into their gods. Go and look more into the individuals that made it possible for us to even know this information, which was, a white man. Just like, I guess, it was a white man that allowed us to do that. Whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. But with that, that's it. I guess I'll go through my quick spiel. Every Wednesday, World History According to the Bible. Make sure y'all tapping in. It's a lot of good information for those who are new. It's a lot of good information for those that's been around and haven't been able to go in depth in certain things. Every second and fourth Thursday, stick to the script. Every Friday, room 144. Always some great lessons there by Yashamai or Bishop Banayar or Bishop Izar, and sometimes Ashna Pash. This past month, Bishop Tzayawan hasn't been doing Feed the Sheep, but he's due to return, Lord willing, soon. And all of his classes are fire. All of these classes are good, but Bishop Tzayawan, those Saturday classes really hit. Make sure y'all tapping into these classes. Tuesday is Bible Basic. Can't forget about Tuesday. Tuesday is Bible Basic. Every first Monday, which is next Monday actually, of the month, we have Q&A. Whatever questions you may have, historical, doctrinal, moral, pertaining to the law, whatever questions you may have pertaining to the Word of God, pertaining to your soul, pertaining to your salvation, tap in to Q&A, ask those questions. We don't profess to know everything, but we know enough, and whatever we don't know, we'll be sure to get back with you as soon as possible. So, every first Monday, every second and fourth Monday, we have our Spanish channel that releases videos. Tuesday, Wednesday, second and fourth Thursday, every Friday, every Saturday. Tap into these classes. Feed your soul. This is to help build you up. This is to help strengthen your foundation and ultimately help you to be a minister to the word. Like the page on Facebook, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Make sure y'all locked in with us. We do this for y'all. We do this to save souls. We do this to try to build you guys up in this word, strengthen your spirits, because you're going to need a lot of strength as time progresses, because this world ain't getting better. It's getting worse.
A lot worse.
So y'all tap in with us. Let's continue to build. Let's continue to grow. Let's continue to raise the nation. With that, Brother Yarab, Brother Darash, we signing out. Shalom.
Shalom.
Mix it on.